Welcome to week 10, day 1, fabulous first graders. This week we're going to be talking about patterns. For today, our I can statement is I can identify, describe, extend, create, and transfer repeating patterns. For today's lesson, you're going to need pencil and paper or crayon, something to write with. And optional, you can ask an adult to print out the exit ticket for you, or you can just use your blank piece of paper to show your work. Let's see if we can identify some repeating patterns that we can find in real life. This is actually my son Bryson, and he is wearing a pattern where? On his shirt. Lots of times you'll see different types of patterns on clothing. This is my basket that's on my kitchen counter that has fruit in it. And you can see a different type of pattern all around the basket. It has different color reeds where it's woven. This is actually a tray in my kitchen. The R has a repeating pattern, a chevron pattern that's repeating. My curtains have repeating patterns on them. You will hear people actually have motions and rhythms in repeating patterns. Sometimes at football games or basketball games, you'll hear clap, stomp, stomp, clap, stomp, stomp. So that's a type of pattern too. And then this hundreds chart has patterns on it. The numbers are in rows of 10. I'm also going to play you a pattern. Listen to music that has repeating patterns. Here's a pattern that's repeating. The ukulele is playing. And they added a layer of singers on, but the pattern's still in the background. Another layer, but they still have the repeating ukulele and the repeating fingers, and now they're adding more instruments. So you can see even music has repeating patterns, rhythm patterns in it. So when you're listening to your favorite music in the car, listen to hear any repeating patterns. So there are repeating patterns in lots of different places. So let's talk about a repeating pattern. What is a repeating pattern? Well, this is actually a pattern made with colored Unifix cubes. Say the pattern with me. It's red, yellow, red, yellow. So part of this pattern is going to repeat. Red, yellow, red, yellow. The core of the pattern is the part of the pattern that repeats. So if you look at this, can you tell me what the core of the pattern or what part of the pattern repeats? If I were going to mark the part of the pattern that repeats, this is the core of the pattern, red and yellow. And then it repeats, red, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow. Can you extend this pattern? Extending it means making it longer, repeating it, since this is a repeating pattern. So what should come next? Red, yellow, red, yellow. Extend it some more. Red, yellow, red, yellow. One more time. Red. And then we could keep on going. We might stop at red, we might stop at yellow. But the pattern, the core, is repeated over and over. Predict what comes next. Predict is making an educated guess. It says, what is the core of this pattern? So let's go ahead and look at the beginning of this pattern. Our last pattern was a color pattern. This is a color pattern again. So we have purple, green, green, purple, green, green, purple, green, green. Can you tell me what the core of this pattern is? Let's look. I want you to take your finger on the computer and I want you to trace around the core. Did you trace around the first three colors, purple, green, green? You're right, that is the core of this pattern. Let's keep going. Can you extend this pattern? That means make it longer. Let's see if you're right. Purple, green, green. What comes next? Purple, green, green. One more time. Purple, green, green. Great job. Predict what comes next. Let's look at this pattern. Yellow, red, green. What is the core of this pattern? Let's look. Oh, at first I thought it was going to be yellow, red, green, but it's not. This pattern is a little more complicated. I think I need more information before I decide what is the core of this repeating pattern. So I'm going to look a little bit more. I need this pattern extended so I can tell what the core is. All right, so let's look at what I have so far. Yellow, red, green, green. Yellow, red, green, green. Yellow. What do I think is going to come next? Maybe red. And then green, green. Let's look. It is. So let's look. I'm going to draw a rectangle around my core. Can you draw a rectangle around the core? Let's see if we have the same, if we've identified the core. Did you identify the core as yellow, red, green, green, and then it repeats? Yellow, red, green, green, yellow, red, green, green. That's what I did. Now, the next question said, is this a more complex pattern or more complicated? It is, because we had to extend the pattern to be able to see what the pattern was. Can you extend this pattern? That means, can we make it longer? I bet you can guess what comes next. What do you think is next? Let's look. Yellow, red, green, green. You were right. Let's transfer this pattern. Transfer means to make the same pattern in a different way, to show the same pattern in a different way. So first, if we were going to transfer this pattern, I know that this is the core of the pattern. So that's the part that repeats. I'm going to make a pattern using letters this time. And every time I see a yellow, I'm going to write the letter A. And now the second object is a new letter. So every time I see a red, I'm going to assign it the letter B. We have a third color in this pattern. So we need to have a third letter assigned, C. Now here's the green again. What letter do I write every time I see a green? A C. So the core of this pattern, since this is the same pattern, is going to be A, B, C, C. So I have a yellow, which is A, red is B, green is C, green is C. So I have A, B, C, C. Now I'm repeating. A, B, C, C. Yellow is A, red is B, green is C, green is C. So when you transfer a pattern, you're showing the pattern in a different way or in a different form. So these two patterns are the same, but they are just using different forms. One is the color pattern, yellow, red, green, green. One is a letter pattern, A, B, C, C. Comparing patterns. How are these two patterns similar? Similar means the same. What's the same about these two patterns? Well, let's see. I have triangle, square, triangle, square, triangle, square, triangle, square. And then I have a number pattern, 0, 5, 0, 5, 0, 5, 0, 5. Well, I know that the core is repeated in this pattern. So it's a repeating pattern. Both of these patterns have only two different things. So I have a triangle and a square, triangle, square, triangle, square. So the first two shapes are repeated in this shape pattern. The first two numbers are repeated in this number pattern. If I wanted to identify the core, circle what you would put as the core. This is the core to the shape pattern. This is the core to the number pattern. Now, tell me how these patterns are different. Right. This pattern, the top pattern, is made with shapes. They're all the same color. This pattern is made with numbers, and they have different colors. So we identified the core of each pattern. How do you know that that's the core? You're right. The core is what's repeated when you extend the pattern. Great job. Now, we talked a little bit about transferring patterns. That means you show the same pattern in a different way. So when we looked at these two patterns, this is the same pattern shown in a different way. It had the first two objects repeating. Now this pattern is a little more complex. It still has two objects, and then we did shapes. They actually are shapes and colors, and they're repeating. But if I wanted to transfer this pattern and show the same pattern in a different way, I could do a color pattern, number pattern. I could do a rhythm pattern, like every time you see a square, you could clap. Every time you see a triangle, you could snap. So I could say square, triangle, triangle, square, triangle, triangle, square, triangle, triangle, square, triangle, triangle. Could I transfer this pattern and show it in another way? I could. I could do it with letters. So if I were going to write letters for this, I could say every time I see a square, it's A. Every time I see a triangle, it's B. Here's another triangle, so it's B again. A, B, B. A, B, B. A, B, B. That's another way to show the same pattern. Can you match the repeating patterns? So let's look at the first pattern. Clap, stomp, stomp. Clap, stomp, stomp. Let's see. Clap, stomp, stomp. Clap, stomp, stomp. So it has the first motion, and then the second one's done twice. First, second, second. First, second, second. First, second, second. So let's see. This is first, first, second. No. First, second, second. First, second, second. So it looks like this pattern, clap, stomp, stomp, clap, stomp, stomp, is the same as red, yellow, yellow, red, yellow, yellow. So I'm going to match these two patterns because they're the same. They're just transferred. They're showing the same pattern in a different way. Let's look at the next pattern. This shape is it's standing up vertically, and then it's on its side horizontally. So vertical, horizontal, vertical, vertical, horizontal, vertical. Let's see. Vertical, vertical, horizontal, vertical, vertical, horizontal. They don't match. Let's see. Red, blue, red, red, blue, red. Now, if this confused me, I could transfer the pattern so that I can see if it's the same pattern in a different way. Now, instead of doing A-B pattern like I did last time, this time I'm going to choose numbers. So every time I see the first shape, I'm going to write a number 1. And every time I see the second shape, I'm going to write a number 2. So 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. Now, I'm going to go back up here. Every time I see my first shape, it's a number 1. Every time I see a next shape, it's number 2. So 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. So I can see now these two patterns are not the same. I'm going to try to do the same thing and transfer this to make it a number pattern to see if that helps me. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. Wow. So this is 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. This one is 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. So that pattern is the same. They're just shown in different ways. Now I'm going to see if the last two patterns match. Well, since I already made this into a number pattern, I'm going to make this one into a number pattern. I'm going to transfer it, which means write the same pattern in a different way. So every time I see an A, what number should I write? A 1. Oh, I have a B. You're right. I need to write a number 2. So 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. Do these two patterns match? They do. So I'm going to connect the patterns. So sometimes if you're having a hard time deciding if patterns repeat and they match, you can transfer the pattern and check to see if the pattern is the same. Some people like to use letters. That's what I usually do, but you don't have to. You could use numbers, you could use colors, you could use shapes. Work it out. I have a word problem and I need your help to solve it. Let's read it together. Mrs. Smith decided to line up everyone in her class. She put a boy first and a girl second, a boy third and a girl fourth. Now the question says, who will be 10th? How do you know? Explain your thinking using pictures, numbers, and words. Well, what I usually do when I solve a problem is read it first. Then I draw a picture to help me organize my thinking. So, Mrs. Smith decided to line up everyone in her class. She put a boy first. So I know my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write B for boy. So that's first. And then she put a girl second. She put a boy third. She put a girl fourth. Now the first question, it says, who will be 10th? So how are we going to find that out? We need to extend the pattern. How far do we have to extend it? Yes, 10 places. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write my number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have to find out if there is a boy or a girl in that 10th spot. Look at it and see if you can count it out and make a guess. If you want to write it out on your paper, that would be great too. I always like to write out my problems. Let's see how we did. So boy, girl, boy, girl. If you're having a hard time, you can decide what part of the pattern is the core. What part of the pattern repeats? It's boy, girl each time. Boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. Here's another boy, girl, boy. Did you say girl? You're right. So the girl is 10th. How do you know? We knew because we extended the pattern. So I'm going to write my answer in words now because we read it, we drew it, and now we're going to write it. A girl will be 10th. I extended the pattern to find out. So that was my strategy I used. I extended the pattern until I got to the 10th spot. Now it's your turn. Have an adult print out this page for you, or you can just use your paper and pencil and crayons to do this on your own. Make your own pattern. Now again, today we're just focusing on repeating patterns. That means the core of the pattern is repeated over and over. The directions say, make a pattern with cubes, color your pattern to match the cubes. If you don't have cubes at home, you can use your piece of paper and you can just draw the cubes and color them in. After you've made your pattern and colored it, the next question said, what is your pattern core? You will have to write or draw what your core of your pattern is, what part of your pattern repeats. The next question says, make another pattern with cubes. Color your pattern to match the cubes. What is your pattern core? I want you to make a different pattern this time, not the same pattern. I don't want you to transfer it. So if you make an AB pattern up here, don't make another AB pattern right here. I want you to make a different pattern. You may pause. Once you're done, you can come back and we'll check and I'll show you some types of patterns. You may end up having different answers. Welcome back. Your first direction was to make a pattern with cubes and color the pattern to match the cubes. Let me show you one example you could have done. Now I had pink and green for my patterns and I decided to do an AB pattern. So pink, green. What do you think came next in my pattern? You're right, pink. What comes next? Green. Pink, green. And then I decided to make it easier on me and I said, oh, well, I know that every other one is going to be pink and every other one will be green. So what is my pattern core? Can you tell me what my pattern core is? Right, pink, green. So I might write P for pink and G for green. That's the core that's repeated. Did you have a pattern that looked like that had two colors that just repeated? If you did, then you have the same type of pattern that I made. You may have made a different pattern. Let's look at another option. This is another type of pattern that I made. I did pink, 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 blue, blue. pink, pink, pink. What do you think comes next? Blue, blue. Pink, pink. Now I ran out, but if I wanted to extend it, what color would come next? You're right, I would have another pink. Can you use your finger and find my core of my pattern? If you said the core was pink, 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 blue, blue, you're right. That's the part of my pattern that repeated. I had 3 pinks, 2 blues, 3 pinks, 2 blues. And if I kept repeating it, I would keep going. 3 pinks, 2 blues. So it says, what is my pattern core? I did pink, 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 blue, blue. That's my pattern core, the part of the pattern that repeats. How did you do? If you have a chance, show someone in your family or someone who's with you what your pattern is that you made and what their core is. Then you could always ask them if they could extend your pattern or make it longer. Can they predict or guess what comes next if you made your pattern longer? Great. Let's review our I can statement for today. I can identify, describe, extend, create, and transfer repeating patterns. I can't wait till you come back tomorrow. Tomorrow, we are actually going to be working on a different type of pattern. Repeating patterns have the core that repeats over and over. But tomorrow, you're going to be learning about a growing pattern. So I want you to be thinking about what that might look like. A huge thank you goes out to the Region 1 Math site, Virginia Department of Education, and Ben Sound for the music for today. I hope to see everyone tomorrow. Bye.